And I'm going to be interviewing him today about his career. I've always looked up to him, and he's been an inspiration to me my entire life. And I think that he's accomplished a lot, and I'm very proud of him. And so we're going to start this thing off. Granddad, can you tell us a little bit about your career?
Well, I started very young in the construction industry, working for a very fine local firm. I actually started there working after school when I was 15 years old as a part-time draftsman, and worked out real well for me and ended up making it a career and finished 46 years with the same company.
Wow, 46 years. You don't hear of that a lot these days.
Well, it was a very good company, and I met some outstanding people, and it just gave me opportunities that I really hadn't expected or thought were going to happen for me.
That's great. Who were some of your most positive role models when you were young?
Well, when I was very young, obviously there were several teachers. One was my ninth grade art teacher who helped me get my first position, and that was drawing jewelry for a wholesale jeweler. They published a little catalog every month, and I worked one summer doing that. And that opened up a lot of opportunities for me.
That's pretty neat. Wholesale jeweler. Such a young age.
Well, I was anxious to go to work and try to make some money and make things better.
Wow. And was there anyone in particular who stood out among your positive role models?
Well, it turned out that as a youngster, I had an opportunity to go to the Optimist Club summer camp. And one of the gentlemen who was a member of the Optimist Club turned out later to be the vice president of this company that I worked for. After I'd gone to summer camp for a couple of years, and after I'd worked for the wholesale jeweler, some way he came across some of my artwork and asked me if I'd like to consider working for the construction business. At first, I wasn't too excited because I wanted to do something more artistic, and he showed me the plans that I was expected to draw, and quite frankly, it looked like straight lines with a ruler. I wasn't really excited until he told me he was going to pay me $1 an hour.
$1 an hour.
And I got real interested after that, so I went to work.
So, how much money was that?
Well,
back then?
Minimum wage in those days was 60 cents an hour. And my father had family, and I was one of 4 children, and he made $1.50 an hour.
And at the age of?
Oh, my father, he was late 30s, maybe 40 years old then.
And you were how old?
I was 15 years old.
15 years old, making $1 an hour.
Yeah, and I was very proud of that.
That's pretty awesome. I gotta do a high five. Now, so was there a particular class or teacher that you remember having a lasting impact?
Well, besides my ninth grade art teacher, there was an English teacher in my sophomore year at high school who, through her efforts, and it was a very difficult subject to try to teach children of that age English and writing and spelling, but she made me aware of the fact of how important those things were, to learn how to write and express yourself and communicate with other people. I don't think she realized what an impact she did have on me, but she was of a greater help than she will ever know.
Wow. So this teacher had a huge impact on your life.
It made me think about the things I had to do to improve myself. And I think that is extremely important.
Good. When did you realize that your artistic talents could help opened doors for you?
Well, again, that probably started back when I was still in junior high school, and my art teacher helped me get a job working for the wholesale jeweler. I had two brothers that were artists, one younger and one older, and they went on to pursue artistic careers, but at that young age, we just all thought we were going to some way magically be commercial artists, not really even understanding exactly what that was. So I think I was thinking about it from the time I was in the 7th or 8th grade on.
Wow, at a very young age, you kind of knew what you wanted to do and what you were good at, and
Not exactly, but I knew it had to be in that field.
something artistic.
I liked that, I enjoyed that, and that's important to do what you enjoy doing.
Great. And did your experience with Optimist Camp as a youth have an impact? You touched on that a little bit earlier.
Well, I think it did have an impact because it took me out of the neighborhood that I grew up in and put me in a sort of a real fresh area. At camp we had swimming and hiking in the woods. And we didn't have anything like that in the city area that I grew up in. So it was kind of like a breath of fresh air. Plus the fact that I met the gentleman in the Optimist Club. Not only the one who turned out to be my mentor, but several of the other gentlemen, and just observing them and see how they responded and how they acted, because they were all reasonably successful businessmen.
Right.
That was their helping the community, is getting involved in what they called their boys' work program.
Some people may not know what the Optimist Club is. Can you just explain briefly what the Optimist Club is? Or was?
Well, basically it was a club that businessmen belonged to, and there were probably 6 or 7 of them in Louisville at the time. These gentlemen belonged to the South End Optimist Club. They were involved in various businesses, most of them in small businesses. They had a program that they called the Boys Work Program. Now the Optimist clubs have expanded where they're involved in young girls also, as a lot of charitable type organizations are. And they feel like their job is to prepare young people to grow and better themselves for the future. And they do it through summer camps and running Little League baseball leagues. As a matter of fact, years later, I became a member of the Bon Air Optimist Club, and we ran a Little League baseball league for several years, and I enjoyed that very much.
Cool. Did you have any particular mentors early in your career that helped guide you as you progressed in your career?
Well, when I got involved in the construction business, of course, there was a gentleman in the Optimist Club who hired me, but also there was a chief engineer, and there was the owner of the company. All 3 of these gentlemen, who were much, much older than I am, seemed to take a personal interest in me. They guided me and coached me and helped me. The engineer, as I think back in those early years, I must have worried the poor man to death, because I must have asked him 100 questions every day. How do you do this? How do you draw that? Why do you do it this way? Why do you do it that way? He was an excellent engineer. He was a graduate of Northwestern University, and he was always extremely patient with me. He never ever told me he was too busy or didn't have time. So I will always remember. Then there was the vice president, the gentleman who hired me. He was always so positive. He made me feel like that I could do almost anything, until I realized he told everybody that. So he was a great motivator for everybody in the company. And then the owner of the business was an older gentleman. He also took a personal interest in me, and I ended up working for him, and then his son took over the business, who was still older than I was, and I worked for him. And then as the years went by, I took the knowledge that I had gained from all these gentlemen and passed it on to the third generation, who was the owners of this company, and all the other associates that were working with me.
Great. What were some of the biggest obstacles you faced starting out, and how did you overcome them?
Well, the biggest obstacle is a mental attitude problem when you grow up in a, let's say, an unattractive neighborhood, and all of a sudden, through this job I was able to gain, I'm put into a mix of people who are formally educated much more than I am, and have a, I don't know how you'd say it, a much more gentlemanly type of lifestyle or culture. So I had to learn how to handle that and not feel self-conscious. And these people's attitude towards me helped me do that. So that was the most difficult personal problem I had to handle. The other problem was how to constantly educate yourself to meet the challenges that the business was going to bring forth each day. The problem of making yourself more valuable so the company could recognize that and could promote you and afford to pay you more. It's a two-way street. If you want to be successful, you have to prepare yourself for the success. You have to study everything that comes along. And I found that these people that I worked for were extremely generous because they did take the time and the patience to lead me and guide me through these things.